Welcome back. This is Lisa Niver from We Said Go Travel, and I'm so honored and thrilled and excited to be here today with you with my favorite mermaid, Rachel Novak.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi. Oh my gosh. Ever since we met at the scuba show, I've wanted to talk to you more. I'm so excited to talk to an actual real mermaid.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. I'm really excited.
Yes. So I just want to give people a little bit of background for you. You currently live in Nevada, but you're also
Mhm.
Miss Mermaid Nevada. So tell us, like, did you grow up in the desert and you were desperate for the water? Were you born in the water? How did this happen?
It's kind of this crazy path that I took to it. So I'm also a pharmacist and I also work as a circus artist. But throughout pharmacy school, I needed some sort of creative outlet. And so circus was my fitness, my social life, my pretty much the other half of me. And from there, I used to work as a fire dancer quite a bit. And I got into mermaiding because eventually, at some point in time, I wanted to have another skill set to add to my repertoire of things to book me for. And so I got into mermaiding. And because of mermaiding, that's what got me into diving. And so I just wanted to be a better mermaid. So it went from progressing into diving and going all the way up to dive master, and then progressing into freediving and going all the way to freediving instructor. So that's kind of the long story for how I became a mermaid.
So you're incredibly well trained. So people can find you. You have a whole YouTube channel, The Sailing Siren, and
Yes.
you're very well trained. You're an instructor. And one of the things I love about your YouTube channel, I love that you share that there were challenges. So could you talk a little bit about, you have a whole video about failing the first time you were trying to be an instructor. And for me personally, I think it's really important that people who see you as this incredible mermaid and so talented and so skilled an instructor, that it wasn't just a walk in the park. Like, you had struggles, because I think people worry, they know they're going to have struggles and like, I'll never be like her. But I think it's very valuable that you've shared that it was challenging.
hmm Yeah, and yeah, so for those of you who haven't seen my YouTube channel started when I went from having no formal freediving experience all the way going through the instructor course and beyond. And the reason why I wanted to document it is to give people an idea of what to expect in a course, because you say, oh, it should take me 2 to 3 days to pass a course. And I wanted to humanize the fact that that is in absolutely perfect situations where somebody can equalize perfectly. And so for me, one of my biggest challenges was learning how to equalize properly in a head down position, because it's different than scuba diving. And so it took me quite a while to figure that out. And I wanted to be able to share that with people, because especially on that video in general, people are like, oh, I failed too. And, now that I'm an instructor, I can say, no, you just have to put a little bit more time in. And it's just about learning about your body and figuring out what works for you.
I think that's so valuable, and I really appreciate you being honest about that, that it is we've all learned over time. And when you see at the end, you're like, oh, I'm a free diving instructor and I'm a scuba instructor. And tell us about how you're in Black Panther 2, the movie.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so over a year ago, I saw a post on freediving memes Instagram that I follow, and it said, looking for people comfortable modeling in elaborate costumes on breath hold with no mask, working depth deep. And I was like, I'm a mermaid, I got this. And I didn't hear anything back, but I kept the dates on that casting open. And sure enough, 4 days before, I got a call from the stunt coordinator, and he interviewed me about my background. And so he's like, okay, I'd like to hire you. I was like, okay, great. So what am I on? Because around that time, Avatar was shooting, and I was just, every freediver hopes that they get to be a stunt performer on Avatar. But that did not happen. I still didn't know what I was going to be on. And when I landed on site where we were going to be shooting, the contract was in my DocuSign, and it said Black Panther 2 Wakanda Forever.
Oh my goodness. What an incredible experience. You've been so fortunate to do things all around the world. So I know part of the free diving, you were living in the Philippines, is that right?
Yes, yeah. So I was in the Philippines for about 6 months. That was where I learned to become a freediving instructor. And I wanted to be able to see some family while I was out there. I'm half Filipina. And so it was nice to be able to kind of get back to my roots while also getting to explore a beautiful place. So the oceans out there are amazing.
It is beautiful there. I would really like to go back again. But you also meet people for courses in Washington, right?
Yes. So I teach courses in Las Vegas and in Washington State. Primarily in Washington State, it's during the summer, just because the it is a lot chillier. And
A lot chillier.
yeah, if you're going to be spending time in the water, it's nice to be able to have adequate thermal protection and relatively warm dive conditions. So I do teach there, and then I do set up courses across the U.S. or wherever there is interest if there are enough people to book out a course.
And so, but you teach all different kinds of classes, right? You teach free diving, but don't you also teach like a bucket list how to be a mermaid class?
Yes. So I teach PADI, or not PADI, I teach SSI and PFI, freediving and mermaiding courses. And so if somebody wants to learn how to be a mermaid, we can go from just an intro of trying to put on a tail all the way up to I want to be an underwater model and I want to get freediving skills so I can have a longer breath hold, dive deeper in a mermaid tail, and mermaid out on the reefs with no mask on. So it goes all the way up from beginner to professional.
That is incredible. So one thing I would like to make a good pause here to talk about with mermaiding and free diving is the importance of not being alone, that people should not ever breath hold underwater without an instructor, without skills, and just think, oh, I'm going to see how long I could hold my breath. Could you talk a little bit about the safety concern?
Yes, absolutely. So I say this with my freediving students as well. But while many of us are do-it-yourselfers, learn off of YouTube, and while I have a YouTube channel, I strongly say that a YouTube education is not going to be a complete education. So definitely take a course, because if you're just starting out, you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know the potential safety sides of things. And especially in the freediving community, when people, if you hear about a freediving related fatality in the news, it's usually somebody who's diving alone, and often they don't have diving education. And so this is something that we're trying to stress in the freediving community, especially since freediving is becoming much, much bigger in the US. We also want to make sure that we have access to places to dive and places to train, and that freediving has a good reputation as it grows in the US.
Yes, very important. And I remember that you do something with free diving competitions.
Yeah, so I dabble in freediving competitions as well. I was a commentator for Vertical Blue at Dean's Blue Hole, so it was nice being able to talk about the amazing accomplishments of people in the freediving community, many of them whose deepest dives or their warm-up dives are deeper than my deepest dives. But I
That's okay. That's okay. It's not a contest. Oh, it is a contest. Go on.
but that's the thing is, like, especially with freediving, people are so approachable, and there's always going to be somebody who dives deeper than you, and it's all about the learning process, and it's all about what's going with what your body is able to accomplish at the time. And so
That's so
I
true.
started to get into the world of competitions, and it's a competition against yourself. It's how deep can I dive, and how deep can I do it safely,
Safely.
know my body, and progressing at a safe level. So I am starting to dabble more on the competitive side as well as continuing on the commentary side.
Wow. So we see you behind the camera, in front of the camera, under the water, above the water. You've got flames, you've got the ocean, and you're also helping people look more beautiful and all of these things. So tell us about how can we find your clothing line and what's in your clothing line?
Yeah, so I'm also an avid backpacker and trail runner, among other things. And I often don't have a lot of space in my backpacking pack. So I wanted to have a modular clothing line. So something that I could use while out trail running. So yoga pants and sports bras. And then they also provide thermal protection. So if you're out on the reefs, you're not using sunscreens that are unfriendly to corals. You're actually using rash guards that match with the leggings and the sports bras if you want. And so I wanted to have something that was ocean themed for freedivers, mermaids, and people who are generally active. And so as far as where people can find that, they can find that at www.aquanautsfreediving.com. So it's like astronauts, but aquanauts.
And we'll put that in the show notes so people can click through and find you. And how does give us an example? Like, is it like, does it have mermaids on it, or is it colorful, or how do we know that it's your Aquanauts line? Like, what's special about, how does it look?
Well, some of them are like cheesy mermaid jokes because if you're in the mermaid community, we have all sorts of mermazing and fantastic puns. And so if you are a mermaid, I happen to see some of those on certain t-shirts. This is one of the shirts that I have on there. It's fairly generic. I also have it in on my laptop cover, but give me vitamin C. I love spending time in the water, and obviously being in a landlocked state, I don't get to do that as much as I'd like, but I do get to spend a lot of time in the water. And so as far as leggings and sports bras, like I said, they are matching and modular, so you can mix and match. But I have mermaid scales, and then I have some other brighter colors as well.
Oh my goodness. So you have so much going on between being a movie stunt performer and a model and saving the ocean with no sunscreen, but you also are very active in ocean conservation. So are there maybe some things where people could participate with you, or maybe you could give tips, like what can people do if they're also in a landlocked state, but they care about the ocean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not necessarily just, caring about the ocean and being in a landlocked state. There are so many beautiful waterways, especially here in Las Vegas. I spend a lot of time out on the Colorado River in Lake Mead and Lake Mojave. And so it's nice to be able to do a dive site cleanup or a beach cleanup. So there are definitely ways that you can get involved. As far as the most recent beach cleanup that I've been a part of, if you've ever heard of the 321 Free Dive Conference, that happened this year. It was the first freediving specific conference in the US, or in Northwest, or basically in North America. And we were actually able to organize a beach cleanup in conjunction with 4Ocean. And so a lot of the participants were able to come, pick up trash, and then also learn about freediving from freedivers from all over the world.
That's amazing. So 4Ocean, they're the ones that have the bracelets made out of recycled things that they've taken out of the water at the trash cleanup.
Yes, yes. So the organizer of that event, Jennifer Morgan, she was in contact with 4Ocean, and apparently, I believe it's for every there's a certain amount that they'll actually pledge to pick up ocean plastic for everything that you purchase from them. And so it's just nice to be able to know that you are supporting and being supported by a company that also cares about the ocean.
Oh my goodness, that's very exciting. So oh my goodness. Now I know there's something new and exciting coming up for you. I mean, already we've said you're a free diving instructor, you're available for events, you mermaid at events, you do photos, but now you're going to do something different on television. Tell us what's going to happen next, because this is one of my favorite shows. I can't wait to watch you.
Oh my gosh. Well, we'll see how it goes, but I was invited to compete on American Ninja Warrior. And so I'm really excited, but at the same time, I'm a free diver, and most of the time I've got little chicken arms. I do like rock climbing, but it's a lot. It's a very, very different technique. So I've definitely, I don't know if you can see it, but I've got blisters on my hands from all the pull-ups and laches that I've been doing in the Ninja Gym. But I'm really excited to be able to go on the show and just do the best that I can with the 6 weeks that I have to train. And we'll see where it goes from there.
I think it's so beautiful that you're always challenging yourself in different ways. Like we said, I don't know how you got started being a fire dancer. You could tell us that, but you have I interact with flame, I interact with water, and now American Ninja Warrior to me is like interacting with crazy obstacles. It's just like, oh, I love when they're doing the announcing. They're like, oh yeah, this is a 16-foot lache. She's only 4'11". We'll see how it works out. I mean, it's amazing. What made you decide you wanted to be a ninja next?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny because there was a casting producer that contacted me on my Instagram.
Oh, okay.
So they contacted me on my Instagram and they said, "Hey, we are looking for applicants for the upcoming year, season 15." And I was like, "Oh, sure, why not? I used to watch that as a kid, and that would be really funny if I actually got on." And so I applied, and I applied by the deadline. And then the holidays passed, and I didn't hear anything back. And I was like, "Oh, okay, well, I guess it didn't work out, and that's totally fine." And I was out free diving with a friend in the Springs in Florida when I got a phone call from a number that I didn't know. And I was like, "Oh, I don't know that number." And I went free diving. And then I found out later on the voicemail, they're like, "Hey, this is a casting director from American Ninja Warrior. We'd like to extend an opportunity for you to compete. Please give us a call back." And I was like, "Yeah." So I called and found out that they want me to compete. And so now it's just been pretty much 6 weeks of training, anywhere between 2 to 6 hours a day.
Oh, wow. A lot of
Yeah.
training. Well, we will all be rooting for you. That is for sure. So
Oh,
which thing started the journey? Was fire dancing the beginning of circus, or how'd you get into circus in the beginning?
yeah. So I would say at age 16, I was living in a small town in Southern Oregon, and I saw somebody spinning basically balls on a cord. You see this primarily in Polynesian cultures. It's called poi, Poi. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you spin poi. I have to learn how to do that." And we ended up becoming friends, and he taught me. And from there, it was a progression of picking up skills and getting better as I was progressing through pharmacy school. And once again, I said, with pharmacy school, you're so busy all day that you really don't have time to go out and have a job, at least during the day. And so I would be doing shows at night. And in between my sets, you'd have like 4 to 5 sets a night. In between sets, I'd be stretching in the green room and studying my pharmacology. And so that's kind of what started everything. So along with pharmacy came circus. And then when I graduated and got a job as a pharmacist, I was like, "Hey, just so you know, I work part-time. Performing is something that I'm very passionate about." And, I'm very happy that I took the jump and was just like, they're going to think I'm the weirdest pharmacist ever. But they were really accommodating. And so I was able to have a career both in circus and in pharmacy. And from there, I moved over to Vegas because I wanted to be on a show here, and I was able to book out a contract on a show. And then now I'm doing it freelance because you are able to set your own schedule.
Wow. So I one of the things I most loved when I first met you at the scuba show is that you have built this incredible mosaic for your life. You're like, these are the things I need to do to make my life work, and I make money in different ways, and you're always looking for new adventures and new skills and bringing people along, and it's really, it's so inspiring, and I think that people will be so interested. So let's say someone is interested in, I think freediving and mermaiding are kind of a different path, but what is, if someone was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm pretty afraid of this idea, but I'm a little bit curious," what would you recommend people? How do they get started?
Hmm. Well, I mean, this is something that works for rock climbing, for skydiving, for scuba diving, for free diving, a lot of different activities that I already do. It's really about just taking the time to educate yourself. So for fire dancing, like I started out with different tutorials on YouTube without the fire. And then when it got to the point where it was a potentially scarier or riskier part, that's when I took on mentors. And when you have a mentor who's able to help you through some of the potential safety issues of whatever you decide to do, or if you're scared, they can at least validate what you're feeling and then tell you whether or not that, from their experience, that is something that you should be afraid of or something that you should slowly and sequentially challenge. So it's the same thing with freediving too. When people are in a freediving course, a lot of the time they're worried about the depth, but you build the foundation and you say, you have breath hold that will take you all the way down to the depth that you need to do. And you tell them the safety aspects of it. So if you notice this, then you turn back around. And so it's basically like having a mentor and educating yourself, if you want to summarize things.
I do, and that was really beautiful, but you snuck something in there that we didn't talk about. You're
Oh, really?
also a skydiver.
Yeah, so I have an A license, so I am a baby jumper. So I have 38 jumps under my belt solo. But once again, that is another amazing community to be a part of. And yeah, so I would say that I'm a baby skydiver as well.
Well, I don't know what I am if you're a baby because I did 50 challenges before I turned 50, and for my 50th birthday I did one tandem jump. So I've only been one time. So I think you're way bigger than a baby, to be honest. 38 sounds like kind of a lot of jumps.
Well, it's just like freediving or just like running. There's always somebody with more jumps than you too. And so if there's somebody that you can learn from.
No, it's so true, and you are literally so inspiring, and I am so impressed that you have been part of major motion pictures. You're going to be on American Ninja Warrior, and you working so hard to save our planet and help people make their dreams come true by either being a mermaid that they can meet or training people to be a mermaid. So before we let you go, because obviously you have to go back to the gym and get underwater and get the fire and jump out of a plane, it's a busy time. Remind everybody what are the best ways to find you and follow you and book you and learn with you and jump out of planes with you.
Okay. Well, if you are interested in following my journey through American Ninja Warrior or want to find free diving and travel related content, you can look me up on YouTube and Instagram at The Sailing Siren. So, sailboats, I also am a sailor, and then mermaids, so The Sailing Siren. And then if you want to book a course with me, whether it's mermaiding, free diving, or you want to book me as a mermaid or an entertainer at your next event, you can look me up at www.aquanautsfreediving.com. And you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook under those handles too.
And tell us the last thing with being Miss Mermaid Nevada. Is there an event? Like, can we watch the next Miss Mermaid Nevada, or how does that work?
Yes, well, so there are mermaid competitions out there and mermaid pageants. And so a few years ago, it was during the pandemic. And so I applied to win a title. And once again, it was like, well, whatever happens, happens. And I was awarded a title to compete. And then there is a conference called Mermagic Con, or so it's like a convention for mermaids to get together or merfolk to get together. And it was an actual pageant there. And so there I scored top 10 and won some runway awards, so for modeling. And from there, it was, there were two title holders that were able to continue to advocate for their different volunteer platforms. So there are ways that you can participate in those, but that's a whole nother can of worms. But another thing is I won the title of Miss Sea Queen of Nevada. And there was a competition with Virgin Cruises. And there is more information that I'm not allowed to talk about yet, but I can say stay tuned for later this year if you want to see something on the big screen.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, you'll have to keep me posted. I knew that you'd have more stuff going on. I'm so excited that you're telling us a little tidbit. And again, everyone, we've been spending time not quite underwater with our favorite mermaid, Rachel Novak, and you can find all her information on the Sailing Siren. And we're wishing you so much luck. We hope that we see you on the top of the mountain at the end of the season for American Ninja Warrior.
I hope so too. If not, maybe next year, but I'm definitely going to do my best. And thank you so much for having me and letting me share some of the things that I love talking about.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. And I look forward to blowing bubbles with you soon.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Take care.